Shruta Devi marries Dhamagosha. The other sister, Preeta, who later is known as Kunti, marries Pandu of the Kuru clan. So here in Gokula, Krishna is growing in a cowherd family. There are many exploits. The first thing is, when Kamsa realizes that Krishna is still alive, he sends a Rakshasa woman, smearing her breasts with poison. She comes. It was natural in those days that any woman could breastfeed any child which needed to be fed, because women did not make distinction between this is my child and this is your child. Those problems came only when it came to kingdoms and other kinds of things. But when they were infants, they were not distinguished, anybody could breastfeed. If a woman offers to feed a child, it was never refused. So Putana came to breastfeed Krishna, but with poisoned teats. And Krishna realized this and he sucks life out of her. So starting from this, there are many events like this which are magical, miraculous, defeats logic, all kinds of things. But we will let him grow up without all that. Krishna grew up into a young boy, became the darling of the town. He dressed with so much care when he was just 7, 8 years of age, that he was very concerned how his clothing was. When he stepped out, he never stepped out of the house without a peacock feather. That is the best decoration you could find, and he made sure he has the best always, with the best smile, with the best attitude, with the best dress, because he believed this is one thing that every human being has to do, that to everybody around you, you have to do your best in your appearance, in your voice, in your word, in your thought, in your deed, in everything. With this he lived always. Nobody ever saw him in any other condition. When he woke up, the first thing he did was he smiled. Not cried, not smiled. Tomorrow morning you just wake up like this and see. For the sake of this one and the sake of that one, isn't this the best thing you can do? Isn't this the best thing you can do? It doesn't matter, you only see the ceiling, you don't want to see who is around you. It is all right, you can smile at the ceiling. No? A ceiling is wonderful, it's not even yet fallen upon you, it may one day. Don't make the house in which you live into your grave. Palaces have become graves because people are staring at the ceiling. That you do when you're dead, you know. There will be a ceiling close up and you stare. You can stare as much as you want. Now is the time to live. So he was an embodiment of life. It is not that he has constructed himself in some kind of morality or goodness or this or that. It's just that he's an explosion of life. Nobody could help loving him. And as he grew, he became the darling of the village and the villages around. The rumor spread, there is a boy like this. Just hearing stories about him, just everybody fell in love with him. Women, whether they were 6 or 60 and anything in between, they all fell in love with him, even if they had not seen him, because people spoke, there is a boy like this, a miraculous boy. Nobody has ever seen him off. He is always on, never off. Okay, Sadhguru, tell me. This is off. Huh? Just on, super on, fully charged and on all the time. Krishna is not valued because he's right or wrong. In fact, he's a failure. Whatever he wanted to do, his mission did not succeed. But people love him and worship him 5,000 years later because he was just on, no matter what. It doesn't matter what was happening, he was just always super on, never off. Because the purpose of life is life, and he was a living embodiment and representation of that. He was simply life, all the time life. Generally the image is that he just played, he played his flute, he danced around with young girls, he romanced. No, 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 that he did only till he was 16 years of age. After that, he lived a deadly serious life with a great mission on his shoulders. Making kingdoms, making kings, fighting wars. That's why even in a war, he went with a smile. There are only two situations or three situations where he dropped his smile for a moment. We will come to those situations later. Otherwise, except for these three situations, even in the battlefield when he fought, even when he was defeated in battle, even when he had to run away from a battle, still he went laughing and smiling. So this is Krishna, many things happening around him. Not always right or wrong, but life and life and life alone. He didn't let anything else happen. He did not allow depression to happen. He did not allow anything else to happen, just life in its full charge, never low battery. Ambika and Ambalika, two young queens without a king. And now Bhishma with this vow, not getting anywhere. Satyavati with her burning ambition that her children should become kings. After much thought, she calls Vyasa, Krishna Dvaipayana, who is her son, born upon that island, born to Parashar. Parashar being the father. Vyasa became a sage and moved away. Vyasa was very dark in his skin, and he was dreadlocked, lived in the jungles, doing all kinds of austerities, gained great amount of tapasya, a very powerful being, and he promised his mother. He left her. She had last seen him when he was 6 years of age, but he told her, "Mother, whenever you want me, you just call me. When you really need me, you call me and I will be there." Many years had passed. She had never called him. In her desperation, now what to do? There's a huge empire, two young queens, no king. There is a good regent who will manage the kingdom, but no future. Somebody else will come and take your empire, that's what it means. So she called Vyasa, and Vyasa appeared. She told Vyasa, "You are my son. You should not say no to whatever I ask of you. I have never asked anything from you till date, but now what I ask, you should not say no." Vyasa bowed down and said, "Whatever you say, mother." She said, "You must father children from these two young queens. I want my blood to flow in the Kuru lineage. You are the only one left. I know you are a sage, I know you're an ascetic, but this one thing you have to do for me." Vyasa unhesitatingly said, "Yes, mother, whatever you want." So it was set up. She somehow tried to convince the young queens, They said, no way. But she compelled them. She said, you cannot say no. She's the queen mother. She said, whatever I say is an order, it's not a request. So she told Vyasa to go to Ambika first. So Vyasa went to Ambika's quarter. Ambika looked at Vyasa. He's just straight out of the jungle, dreadlocked, very dark, burnt out in the sun, and he had a flat nose and looked like a very fierce man. When she saw him, out of sheer dread, she closed her eyes and Vyasa impregnated her. But because she closed her eyes, a child was born that was blind. Once again Satyavati, frustrated because she can't make a blind man into a king. She said, you must go back to Ambika. Ambika was not ready. She said, not once again. So that night when Vyasa came, she arranged for a maidservant to be in her bed. Vyasa came and slept with the maidservant and went. Out of this Vidura was born. When Satyavati realized that it was the maidservant and not the queen, she went into a rage. Now he cannot be the king because the child has to come from the queen. Then she compelled the younger queen, Ambalika, to go with Vyasa. She saw Vyasa out of fear. She was told not to close her eyes. She just looked at him, the way he was. Out of fear, she just paled out. And Pandu was born, an albino, pale of skin. But he became a fine young man. But in those days, an albino was kind of inauspicious, that he was strange. But still, he became a great warrior, but they couldn't make him a king because at that time, they thought an albino has a skin disease. A man who has a disease cannot become a king. So they made the blind man the king. Dhritarashtra became the king, but Pandu managed everything. He fought the battles, he made the empire much bigger, he managed everything. Dhritarashtra was a namesake king. A blind man became the king. In every way blind. Not just blind of vision, in every way he was blind to many, many things which he will display later. Vidura, born of the maid, grew up into a fine young man, a very intelligent and wise being, well-versed in Shastras, well-versed in the Vedas, well-versed in the political system, but not a warrior, because the art of fighting was taught only to the Kshatriya. He was not eligible to learn from Bhishma. So he learned all the other things, but he never became a warrior. Pandu became a great warrior, but he cannot become a king because he's an albino and people think he has a skin ailment. Dhritarashtra married Gandhari, the princess of Gandhara. They did not tell her that her future husband is going to be blind. She was a little depreciated bride because it was written in her horoscope, whoever marries her will die within 3 months. Because of this horoscope, nobody would marry her. Because of that, they got her married to a goat and sacrificed the goat. But still, legally, it was a marriage and she was a widow. So she came to Hastinapur to marry Dhritarashtra. a blind man. When she realized that she's marrying a blind man, she took a vow, if my husband cannot see, I don't want to enjoy the world with my eyes, and strapped her eyes. She said, I will never remove this unless he can see, I will not see. So for the rest of her life, she tied a strap around her eyes and denied herself sight, which she naturally had. So two blind people. One was bad enough, isn't it? Pandu married Kunti, and he also took another wife, Madri, the princess of Madra.